Hi, everybody. We're back with Deep Images, and we are conducting a virtual wake of sorts for the recently and sadly deceased David Lynch. We're going to be sharing the things that mean the most to us and what his work as a whole means. Basically, discuss his place pretty much as an inestimable force in the cinema arts. So let's get into it. Hey, everybody, we are back with Deep Images, and we are still in the midst of this David Lynch virtual wake in which we go through his works film by film and discuss how we feel about them and give you some information about them, celebrate the man. I'm Henry Covert, and today I have my two co hosts with me, C.F. Roberts and Justin Cotton, and the amazing Briggie Williams, aka Funky Lollipop, as our featured panelist. So the first film that we are going to talk about today is later in Mr. Lynch's canon. We're going to talk about 1992's Twin Peaks: Fire Walk with Me. This was directed by Lynch himself and co-written by Lynch and Robert Ingalls, who wrote most of season two of this TV series, and of course based on ideas by David Lynch and Mark Frost. But we'll get into who does what and what thinks what it all means. Uh, we're gonna let Briggy talk about this movie first. Like, how did you first see it? What do you think about it? What does it mean? What does it mean?
Yeah, well, let's see. Firewalk with me. The first thing is, do you think you need to see Twin Peaks the series in order to understand this movie? I like to start there because there are people who the haven't seen the movie, sorry, haven't seen the series, and then maybe they're like, oh, I'm just going to step into this movie. Will it make sense? Is there some sort of thread that I need to connect in order to understand the larger picture? So
How do you feel about
the
it?
movie. I'm sorry.
How do
I'm
you
sorry.
answer that question yourself?
Yeah. No, yeah. I mean, certainly. I would say, I would say yes. I would say you would enjoy it a lot more
Oh yeah.
if you watched the series and then understood the backstory because we get to see, the main character. We're introduced to her that she's already passed, she's already gone. We don't get to hear her voice, we don't get to see her emotion, we don't get to see anything about her other than this moment in time as the homecoming queen, and she's just sort of frozen in time in this picture, which is very beautiful, and she's highly stylized, but we really don't know much about her but through other people. And then this movie brings her to life. You get to see her understand how she got to where she was, which is, spoiler alert, well, she's dead, but of course she's dead in the series. It opens that way. But how does that happen?
Well,
So I
she did go end up somewhere else even after being dead though. But there you go.
yes, yes. So I found the movie to be extremely a far cry from the series in terms of its seriousness. The series had a sort of a quirky playfulness in some ways, but this was just a lot more serious. It seemed very dark to me in many
hmm
ways.
hmm
Um, it was yeah, it was telling a deeper story about society at large to me. Laura Palmer kind of represented, again, like in so many David Lynch movies, the female who, as he said, the one thing he did say was like, these are about women in trouble or women with, in
What he
trouble.
says about
And
most of his films. Yeah.
right. But he doesn't. But if you ask him anything beyond that from interviews I've seen, he will not answer. He will not give you anything. He will like, you're going to figure it out on your own. I'm not going to paint the picture for you. I want you to paint it yourself. And much like Twin Peaks and this movie, Fire Walk with Me, he does that completely. He doesn't allow himself to spoon feed the audience.
Mhm.
He's going to tell you what happened to Laura, that she is from a troubled home, and the things that she does behind the scenes. Again, to me, she represents just like Laura Dern um, in Blue Velvet. I found that character to be more or less the same from a seemingly on the outside very stable, loving home, all American parents still together, but there's a darkness that lurks underneath, which is very representative of America, in my opinion, from the
I have to
outside world.
digress with you on that. The surface level, but the thing about Laura
Hmm.
Dern's character is she's learning about
Hmm.
this stuff. Laura is
Hmm.
already a complete hedonist beyond
Yeah.
anyone's wildest dreams, whereas
Hmm. Hmm.
Laura
Hmm.
Dern's young lady in Blue Velvet is
Hmm.
probably still a virgin. You know.
Right, right. Okay, so then let me explain further. I'm speaking about in terms of what they represent. There still
Mm,
is darkness, not the characters specifically directly, but there's always a dark underbelly that's going on
mm,
in these movies, and these women represent again, my interpretation, that sort of very squeaky clean Americana. You never know what time you're in a David Lynch movie because you have the girls that are dressed with loafers and their skirts are of a certain length, which is like below the knee, and there are always guys
Yeah.
on motorcycles and there's convertibles. So you never really know
yeah,
what time. But then he'll show something contemporary, so he knows how to blend those two worlds together. I noticed that all of the FBI agents were in their uniforms, which was the trench coat. So that was a big thing at the time. Like, that's what agents wore. So he had Kyle MacLachlan wearing this, and he also had what was the other? He's a Chris.
Chet
What's it?
Desmond,
Right? Yeah, yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
Chris
Right.
Isaac. Yeah, he
Chris
wants to
Isaac.
fall in love.
Right. Yes, he does.
David Lynch made a whole video of Chris telling everybody how much he wanted to fall in love.
He wants to fall in love.
And he
So I
impressed him so
found
much. He's like, "Can you act?" No. Well, I want you to do this movie anyway, dude.
just come in,
And the
open
thing
up
is, his character is so
half a
key to the
door.
film that
Yeah.
the whole story would fall apart without his character existing.
Right, right. I like that David Lynch, was he deaf or just wearing earbuds? Anyway, so I found that to be very, again, really intriguing. And the mother dynamic. I just want to say that there are things happening right now currently in the news that this movie touched on.
Mm.
And this news has happened in France.
Mm.
So if anybody looking at this who understands what I'm saying,
I
they
only
will
know a
get
little
it.
of it. I haven't followed it as close.
Right. But this
I'm
is
not sure I
reminiscent.
know.
Yeah, well, this is reminiscent of what the father was doing, and
Mm.
just the whole there's just a whole story. And I'm sure, of course, everyone didn't know that, but this is stuff that so he's touching on a lot of different things that are pretty taboo. I'll just put it that
Oh yeah.
way. But overall, just to sort of sum up, so we can move on, I really did um, enjoy the movie. I saw it, oh my gosh, like years and years and years ago. But like many things, when you watch it on its first viewing and you watch it again, it has a deeper, richer meaning to it because you become a deeper, richer person.
Mm.
So yeah,
Good
that's
point.
kind of how I feel about it.
I was surprised how many things I noticed in watching his movies again because I don't own any of them anymore. I had seen them so many times. I was just like, I'm gonna sell these because I have an eBay store, and I was broke as hell. And they eventually all sold. I think Inland Empire sold right around the time I moved in here. So I hadn't seen any of them until Dwayne, our producer, obtained some copies for us, and it was wild. It was wild revisiting and noticing things I hadn't noticed before. That you're right. It's concurrent with how you've grown as a person. I mean, ideally, or maybe degenerated as a person, depending on what direction you want to go. If you want to go that way, you definitely identify with Laura Palmer. Um, we briefly covered Firewalk with Me months ago. We did the show, we did a series on anti-heroes, and we didn't do a full thing on the movie, But we were talking about characters more than the movies themselves overall. I don't know if Chuck was with us then or not. I can't. Yes, he was. You were with us when we did anti-heroes, but you both were.
Yeah.
Just Briggie
Yep.
was. Okay, okay.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember the conversation, but yeah, I was there.
Yeah, yeah. Because Briggie basically replaced Richard because Richard was part of the anti-hero thing. And
Mhm.
he chose a good one, that biker chick from the Stray Cat Rock movies, but not Mako Kaji. That's
Mhm.
a deep cut. But anyway, cut that. So Um, yes, we did it as under anti-heroes, and I had said to the then co-producer Kaylin Ireland in a text a few days earlier. We chatted about Twin Peaks frequently anyway, and how to eventually cover David Lynch on the channel, but he never seemed to fit into what we were doing. And I said, Laura Palmer is the anti-heroine of her own story. And
Mm,
she found that to be profound. I don't know if y'all do. I mean, if you do, thank you. I appreciate it. But it just come to my mind. I thought
yeah.
it was kind of an obvious thing is that she's the hero of Firewalk with Me and in
Hmm.
spirit of the whole entire show. Um, Yet she's an anti-hero in that she's self-destructive, she's secretive, she's vindictive, she has no conscience whatsoever except for few things that make the real dichotomy in her. I think the dichotomy, I'm gonna put past this to Justin in a second, but I think the dichotomy to me, one of them, the obvious one is with her parents. They sit down at the dinner table, they're all prim and proper, and it becomes the nightmare because of the way the father and mother act. And the thing about it is,
Man.
I have spoken to people who did not know the subtext of that scene, like the plot. We watched it and they said, I resonated with this because that's how I grew up when I was sexually abused by a parent. And that's how everyone acted at the dinner table. Like nothing's wrong. And then the dad gets weird and you don't know what to say. And the mom gets weird because she knows but doesn't want to let everybody else she knows. And he nailed it. I knew a major Twin Peaks fan online, and he went to a convention and he, for the first time, met Cheryl Lee. He basically told her that, and his friend was a female. They both basically told her, um, "You you saved my life, pretty much. You were where I was, or I was where you were. Your character was back then." And Cheryl Lee took the woman's hands like this and sat in front of her, face to face on a table, held her hand and basically like she didn't pray. She didn't. She was still kind of energy thing. I know some people might think that's kooky. I personally don't. I definitely think Cheryl Lee is a somewhat evolved person from many interviews I've got, and that's one reason I think she has been very sparse as an actress because that's not really where her fate, lies. But
A lot of it was due to health issues, wasn't it?
she had a lot of health issues, but she also traveled.
Because I thought she definitely should have had a bigger career, especially after that.
Well, the first Twin Peaks box set that came out on DVD, which is long out of print, there's some bonus interviews on there that won't carry it over to the Blu-rays. I
Mhm.
don't have them at all anymore, but you could maybe find them on YouTube. And Cheryl Lee is interviewed at length, and this was done in 2000. And, she was totally cool, laid back, so much charisma, but not pushy in any way. She radiates this energy. And she was talking about how she went to Africa for a few years and she was, talking to elephants and getting into helping animal sanctuaries. And I forgot what else. I don't want to get all the facts wrong and have the fan bros cuss at me in the comments. So you can if you want, guys, no problem. Subscribe and like while you're there. And I just felt as though Laura was, I mean, not Laura, Cheryl Lee herself was perfect for this. 17, 18 years later, when I get the Blu-ray for season three, there's not as extensive interviews, but there are a lot of pieces with her talking. To be honest, and I expected that she would be the star of the third season. I did not expect it was going to play out the way it was. Nobody knew, but you had a lot of plot ideas. I knew it was going to involve the Red Room. I knew it was going to involve Dale getting out of the Red Room, switching with the bad guy. But I thought Laura was going to get out of the Red Room or do something from the Red Room that was going to put her on camera all the time. That's going to show her after death, as Fire Walk with Me showed her living, but the 2 season show never showed her at all, except, as the cousin lookalike character and the dead Laura. And it wasn't. After that first episode, you didn't see Laura again for quite a while. Um, but it was worth waiting for. Well, we can get into Return if any of you guys seen it later, but I did cover it on a show we did called Comfort Food Films, guest hosted by the great Bill Mulligan, who sadly can't be with us tonight. He's a big David Lynch and Twin Peaks and Dune fanatic. We recorded it the day after Lynch died, so I was like, I'm just going to go ahead and pick The Return as my comfort film, because even though it's 17 and a half hours, I literally have watched it probably 10 to 20 times easily. That's a lot of my life. It's like a soap opera. You get hooked, and deliberately so. It's suggesting what you said, Briggie, before we go back to Justin. Yeah, the 2 levels of things and the anachronisms are interesting because, like, Audrey, of course, is probably the most obvious one. Her in that dress and doing that dance in the girls' room. She's right out of like the late 50s, early 60s. She has the hair and the makeup like kind of a 40s glamour girl. Like, these are kind of Lynch's like subtext, but what's interesting is he realizes them in the visual level too, because Audrey's look really, David Lynch loved women. I mean, he was not ashamed of the fact he loved women, and he loved sex, and he loved glamour. He loved female beauty. I mean, he truly did. I mean, you can tell. He had several muses, like Isabella Rossellini for several years was his mate, not married, but he treated all these Twin Peaks actresses like this. And based on interviews I've read, which are many, and people who talk to these people at conventions, I have not. I've never met a Twin Peaks cast member, unfortunately. Um, Based on what I understand, is that Lynch made all these women feel glamorous and like a star, a superstar, as long as they inhabited their role. And, like Madchen Amick, and the thing about it is, all of these girls, for when they were girls, then some of them, Audrey was a little older. What's her name? Sherilyn Fenn. Sherilyn Fenn was actually several years older than the others, but she still looked young. I wondered at the time, like in mid '90s, well, what we just talked about. Why didn't these 3 or 4? Okay, Lara Flynn Boyle, she got some movie work and TV work, and everybody knows she was having sex with Jack Nicholson. Move on. But she was recast. And personally, I thought if they were going to bring her best friend back for The Return, they should bring back Moira Kelly, not Lara Flynn Boyle. I thought Moira Kelly's performance in Firewalk with Me was absolutely definitive for that character.
Yeah.
Even though it's not the one most people know, you know. But how come these women didn't have these big careers in the 90s? What happened? How come they weren't like icons of independent or Hollywood cinema? They all went different ways. Like, Sherilyn Fenn made a lot of low budget movies, and she did some Playboy spreads and everything. And I think if she had better connections, I don't know, maybe it's she didn't sleep with the right people. I mean, my mom used to say that when I was a kid, but now we know that really is how it works, pretty much. I'm of the mind that, also based on interviews with these same women, that none of them did the casting couch thing, and that David Lynch himself was against it, and he satirizes it in a scene in Mulholland Drive. So yeah, these visual things where he's got the anachronistic elements, and then the layers. And I'm gonna let Justin give his impression before I go way off on a rant.
All right, no worries. So, yeah, I saw it during the week from one of the downloads. Obviously, I reckon I might have seen this film before because it's a long time ago, but I'm vaguely remembering bits of the film as I see it, and I think I might have seen it at a friend's place on VCR back in maybe 1996 or so. And I did see at the time when it was current in 1991, I did watch a lot of the Twin Peaks series.
Oh, okay.
Whereas Briggie says Laura Palmer doesn't feature because she's already died, and it's all about who killed Laura Palmer. And just it was that question, who killed Laura Palmer, was so prevalent in social and culture back then that I even remember it was a question in the pub quiz on EastEnders, which I used to watch back then, which is a British
I love
soap.
EastEnders.
It almost
I love
eclipsed.
EastEnders.
It almost eclipsed Who Shot JR. It was like Who Shot JR. I'm old enough to, like, I know who shot JR, saw it happen, but
Yeah,
I'm
yeah, I remember
damn
that. I'm
old.
old enough to remember that discussion when I was about 10, I think. But
Mind you,
anyway,
yes, I was very young. I was probably like 6 months old or less.
and the imagery was the body in the bag, that was floating down the river, and the question was who killed Laura Palmer. So the
Yeah.
series was huge in popular culture and knowledge back then. And then Fire Walk with Me, Twin Peaks. I never saw it at the cinema, but I think I might have seen it several years later on video in the late or mid to late 90s.
Good
So it's a
deja vu.
1992 film. So it's very contemporary with the series. And one
Yeah,
of
it
the
was right
good
after the
things about
series.
it is the cameos. So very interesting cameos in the film. David Lynch himself appears as a FBI agent or senior position. David Bowie is a FBI agent who went missing and then turns up as a sort of prophetic type figure in one scene,
Hmm.
doing an American accent.
Yeah, he is a
Chris
prophetic
Isaac,
figure. That's true.
Chris Isaac, who's always in my mind connected with David Lynch due to Wild at Heart, but Chris Isaac appears very young looking as a FBI agent with Kiefer Sutherland, actually, another cameo in
Yeah.
the first, say, 20 minutes of the film. And then Chris Isaac's character goes missing mysteriously when he discovers the ring, the green ring, which is very symbolic throughout the film and
That's a
appears
MacGuffin, right?
appears in some of my favorite scenes, which are some of the strangest scenes in the red room with the red curtains.
In a row.
So I like these really sort of foreboding but surreal scenes, like when Laura's in her bedroom and she looks at the portrait on the wall, and the portrait has a semi-open door, and if you go forward just around through that door are the red curtains, which then a woman directs you into the red room.
Right.
And one of my favorite characters in this film and the series is the midget, the dwarf. I think you can say that these days, but
His character's officially called the man from
uh,
another place.
yeah. So that the midget with that
He's a
voice,
dwarf.
um,
He wasn't a
yeah,
dwarf.
yeah, that's right.
He
And
is a
I
dwarf.
like some of his lines, which were also in the series, like "I'm sitting by this table. This table is made of formica," and
It's
that's straight. It's
green.
green in color. It's green in color. And also, and there's another reference to formica table later in the film too, but. And also that strange term which means pain and suffering. I think it's Godmandosia,
Garmonbozia.
Garmonbozia, yeah.
Garmonbozia, yeah.
which the midget keeps mentioning that term throughout the film whenever there's a red room scene.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember that from the series as well as sort of my favorite parts because it was just so out there.
Eating the corn is like kind of gross.
Yeah, cream
Yeah,
corn. Cream
yeah,
corn is Garmonbozia.
And when Laura
yeah, that's right.
dies, you see him sipping the cream corn, and then you see these eyes, and you see it's a baboon. Like,
That's right. Yeah,
where are we going with
yeah,
this? But I mean, I think,
yeah. I literally just saw that last night, and I thought,
yeah.
yeah, the cream corn. The film features the last week of Laura Palmer's life, and Laura's played very well by Cheryl Lee.
Mhm.
So it's a prequel to the series where Laura's already passed away. But all the same characters, key characters, are in there, like the two boyfriends. There's one boyfriend that's good and virtuous on his motorbike, James Marshall, played by James Fairley, played by James Marshall, and then the drug dealer boyfriend Bobby, who's a great character as well, but
Oh, yeah.
he's more wayward and actually kills somebody during this film, during a drug deal towards the end of the film.
Then Dana
Um,
Ashbrook, is that the actor's name?
Yeah,
yeah, so
yeah.
he's a negative or sinister influence on Laura, but Laura's obviously in lust with this guy, and so he leads her down the bad path in a way, but not just Bobby. There's other issues as well.
Well,
So
yeah, keep going because there's quite a few other lovers. They're not all in
and
the
it's
movies. Some of them are only in the series.
yeah, so
Those are the public ones. Yeah.
it kind of focuses on themes of as Briggie touched on too, this comfortable, nice suburban life where Laura has with her parents, including Leland. Very creepy character, Leland. But beneath the veneer, the surface is a darkness there, something very sinister. So it
Hmm.
focuses on themes of incest, abuse, and drug addiction as well.
Hmm.
And the woman in trouble, as we mentioned, which is a common theme in Lynch films. There's some scenes in the sort of middle part of the film involving that sort of country and western bar, which
Oh, yeah.
they say Welcome to Canada. I don't know if it's supposed to be across the border in Canada, but
Yeah, it's across the board. There's a sleazy
yeah,
bar, man.
the sleazy bar, country's barn style with
It's
that
sleazier
character.
than when they did the TV series. They had One Eye Jacks, which is basically a
Yeah,
gambling brothel. So then
that's right. Yeah,
she goes to this
they
place,
mentioned.
and
Yeah,
then it's like the RR rated version of One Eye Jacks.
that's right. So there's a lot of slow dancing, nothing too over the top in terms of Caligula style. So that scene goes on for a while. There's that sleazy character Jack, who is a bartender. Her friend Donna, who tries to, like his high school friend, tries to get her back on the straight and narrow, but she ends up being corrupted by this and goes along with Laura, much to Laura's shock, because Laura
Right.
says, "I don't to Donna, I don't want you to be like me."
Right.
And Laura actually rescues Donna from a scene during the where she's on across the table in the sleazy bar. Um, so that features that's quite prominent in the central part of the film. Um, you know, feminists might argue it's a bit exploitative, and I think there's probably some currency in that view. But
Well,
um,
it's a bar, it's a brothel, it's a bunch of rednecks who
it,
take
it, fit, it,
cocaine,
fit, it fits with the storyline that
paying
Lynch has tried
teenage
to create.
girls to have. Yeah, I mean that's the thing about Lynch is you peel back that genteel exterior that y'all are talking about, and that's what you have is a place like that bar, and I really think that's where the movie it's humorous at times at so scenes, but that's when I think it really gets dark, and I really think that really pounding music, I think, really contributes to this persistent kind of feeling of just is almost like
Yeah,
slow grind stripper music. I mean, and Lynch has
that's right.
written
Yeah,
several
it is.
pieces like that. He writes that music himself. The Badamonte did the soundtrack to this movie.
Like a
Wow.
lot of Lynch films, it's a very evocative of emotions. You're not just a passenger on a ride. It really draws the emotions out of you, whether they're good emotions, humor, or something that's unsettling. So that scene will make you feel unsettled. But also, there's another later scene where Laura's in her bedroom, and probably the very creepy character in the film, the spirit Bob, crawls through the window and onto the bed and is on top of Laura. And of course, she then visualizes, as I expected would happen, Bob is actually Leland. She sees Leland above her. So that's
It's
another.
her father, right? Her father.
Well, but here's where you get into
Yeah,
what
that's
does
right.
it mean and what's
Right.
canon and what's real and what's not real. If you follow the whole canon and watch it and find out about Bob and Leland and Laura, the human stuff, but also like the mystical supernatural stuff. So yeah, Leland comes to her room that night and is raping her, and he has been coming into her room persistently. Laura has been interpreting this as saying, Bob, who is he? He's having me every night. And you see him on top, but he comes in through the window. Leland doesn't need to crawl in through a window. But the spirit of Bob does crawl, literally, the spirit crawls in through the window and continues his habitation within Leland. Like he's not always present inside of Leland, but he usually is during that time period. And when the end comes, what did you think of that? When everything kind of got fucked up on the train, that was really dark. That was some
Yeah,
of the
that was
Yeah.
extremely dark. I mean, you knew it was going to happen because who killed Laura Palmer, but yeah, it was dark. It was very uncomfortable,
Mm.
but there are the other scene that we just mentioned is also very uncomfortable in a different way as well. So yeah, and she says during that scene where when Bob, aka Leland, is on top of her, but she's seen Bob, who's a very creepy looking character with this long grey hair, and
Hey now.
she keeps saying, "Who are you? Who are you?" And then all of a sudden she visualizes Leland above her. And there's other scenes that are just outright strange, where earlier in the scene, with about, I guess it's probably 40 minutes to go in the film, there's Laura's in the car with Leland and they're driving, and this guy pulls alongside and is yelling. Is it the one armed guy?
Yeah,
The
He's
one
yelling
armed
at
man.
Philip
Yeah.
one armed man.
Gerard. Yeah.
Yeah, he's yelling at Leland, and sort of Laura's yelling at her dad, saying, "What's going on? What's going on?" And he's sitting there in a traffic
It
jam
is
while
really
some guy's walking across the street with a walker and holding up this big logging truck and other cars behind it. It's just a very strange scene where everyone's sort of Leland and Laura are kind of discombobulated by what's going on.
He loves
Um,
those kind of scenes of intersections of traffic in small towns. There's hazardous one in Twin Peaks: The Return that's just evocative of that one, but totally different
Yeah.
situation. But
but the character herself, and I read a review where it said, if nothing more, it's a deep insight that tells you who Laura Palmer is, and she is an anti-hero in a lot of ways because she's self-destructive to herself. Um, she can be cruel and vindictive. There's a scene where towards the end where she's talking to the good boyfriend James, and
yeah,
he says, "You hurt the ones you love," and she says, "You hurt the ones you pity." But then he says, "But you do love me, and I love you. I know that to be true." And she
that's,
kind of then admits that.
well, and
Um,
that's so to me it resonated because it's like I've been James before, and it's painful and it's embarrassing once you realize that this woman doesn't love you. And no matter how many times you say I love you, it's not going to change anything. It's not going to make her want to be with you. It's not going to make her stop taking drugs or sleeping around. But James it's like that's his plea, but I love you. And it's like, yeah, he does love her because he has a more pure spirit, whereas Laura's really whacked out.
well, he
Well, you
kind of
know what?
represents purity
Hey, Brie.
in the film. Yeah,
I would just say that I feel that Laura's reaction, the way she is perfect. It's typical of somebody who's being abused.
Yeah.
They act out, they
Yeah.
self-harm. They're doing things that are not making sense to the outside world, but inside, she is trying to escape that pain. And by doing so, she is drowning herself in coke and smoking, drinking, men, all of those things, and then also not knowing who this person is. The father says at some point, I thought you knew. I thought you knew it
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
me. So that sort of tells me that he believed that she was just along for the ride, like she was just
That she
allowing
was
him to
keeping the
do it.
peace for the mom, for her
Right. And right. And he was drugging the mother also. The
Mhm.
yeah.
father was drugging her so that he can do whatever. So this spirit that was coming in, Bob was coming in through the window. That was the father's way of detaching himself from the act that he was doing to her. So
Right,
it
Yeah.
absolves him
right.
from doing this to her by saying, no, it wasn't me, it was this entity that was doing this
It
to
actually
you.
was, but it actually was
So,
both of them. That's the thing is Bob is real, and Bob is what Justin said, a spirit. He's actually more than that. If you get into the return, they go into the cosmology of all this and why
mhm.
they explain everything in this movie we're talking about. All the questions
Oh,
you have are answered in the third season. And
mhm,
they're all very important, like the David Bowie thing.
mhm,
Yeah, that did seem like a cameo, but actually, that character is one of the key characters of the entire mythos, and
mhm,
it persisted even after David Bowie died, which I went into on my review of the series. How they managed to pull that off with David Bowie's pre-death blessing, needless to say, because they were talking about it. Um, but the movie, there's all this stuff embedded in it, and like the thing with Bob and Philip Gerard is the man who stops them at the light. That's one name he takes. Now, I don't know if you guys have noticed this throughout Lynch's career. He names his characters after characters in older movies. So Laura Palmer is named after Laura from Laura. Philip Gerard is named after the guy who's chasing the fugitive in the David Jansen TV series.
Oh,
Pete,
wow.
Pete Martell is
Cool.
named after a character in a noir movie, and I can't remember what it is. Um, Gordon Cole, his character, Lynch's character, was a character in Sunset Boulevard, which he names as his favorite
Hmm.
movie. And
Oh, yeah.
What about Bobby Peru in Wild at Heart? Was he named after anybody? Do you think?
I think he just came up with that name. Yeah, he has cool names on his own, but he does deliberately embed like okay, and another one in the return, um, Sykes, Freddie Sykes. He's this Irish kid or whatever was this green glove that gives
Yeah.
him the power to fight these demons like Bob. That's his destiny. I mean, that's totally out of left field. But Lynch does it on purpose. But his name is Freddie Sykes. Freddie Sykes is the old man in the Wild Bunch. At the very end, after all the main characters are dead, and there's like three left, and the old guy's like, "Yeah, let's start riding again." That's Freddie Sykes. Totally different kind of character,
Wow.
but he just snatches these names and things. The thing about Laura is there are also these layers, and somebody did a really great meme, and I wish I'd kept it a while back. It said, it said, if Laura Palmer could sleep with five men, hang out in a whorehouse, snort enormous amounts of coke, drink alcohol constantly, um, and run wild, and still have a full-time job and a Meals on Wheels and some friendships, and still look just great. What's your excuse?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, but I
She
think
did you ever
part of the
sleep? She
tragedy.
never slept. I mean, she had to never
Well,
slept.
she's on coke all the time. But I think part of the tragedy with her is that she did actually love James, and she said she did, and I think that was true, and that when she said that at the scene toward the end. But the tragedy is that 5 minutes later, she's meeting up with Jack and Buck and their associate and
Well,
female
the last
associate,
scene
and
with well,
she's
James,
down the destructive path. Yeah,
yeah, that's a weird thing.
which leads
The
to her
whole
death.
how'd you follow the drug deal thing? Because it actually took me a few views to figure out exactly what characters were doing what and what was going on. Because you see the series, and obviously it's standards and practices, so it's not R rated. In the movie, it becomes this blatant thing. I mean, you already know that Laura's probably been doing cocaine for the show and maybe drinking, have a couple of lovers. Well, okay, five or six, and at least, and but you don't really know, like, you don't read the nitty gritty of it. So in this one, you see, you know, goofy, crazy Bobby, teenage Bobby Briggs, and he's like a major fucking thousands of dollars transacting drug dealer with Leo Johnson. No surprise there. In my mind, he's the most banal. He of all the characters in Twin Peaks, Leo Johnson to me is the banality of evil. He's
Yeah,
an absolute moron.
he's a real sack of shit.
And all he does is project negative energy and abuse. He never does anything but hurt people verbally and physically. I mean, even in
Yeah.
Was
the
he the
movie, he
he
slaps
was a
Shirley in the
sleazy
face.
he's a sleazy police officer at the police station, isn't he? At the start, he tries to give Agent
Yes,
Cooper a hard
the guy.
sorry,
Yes,
the agent a hard time, played by Chris Isaac, and then
Mm.
he's playing clothes when he does the drug deal at the end of the film.
exactly. See, I
Yeah.
didn't catch that the first few viewings that was the exact same guy.
Yeah, I only caught that this last viewing.
So all these people are transacting around the border between Snoqualmie, which is the town that they based geographically Twin Peaks on, and the border over here with wherever Canada is. Because I don't know that area too good, but um, so
So it's in Washington State, not Oregon, is that right?
Twin Peaks is in Washington State.
Yeah.
Snoqualmie is in Washington State. I actually
Mm.
got married not far from where it said. I got married at Multnomah Falls, or engaged. I got engaged at Multnomah Falls, which is technically in Oregon, but it's also near the Seattle border. And it's these waterfalls. But I was there in December, so they were all frozen. And
Mm.
so my friend took these pictures of me and my to be wife of us, wearing all black in front of these frozen waterfall. It was so fucking cool. Um, I don't miss her,
Cool.
but that was the great experience. But
That's
It's
gonna be
like
fun.
some things are right and some things are wrong. So the experience is right, just the person was wrong.
right, and to her
You wouldn't
credit,
be the
she
first person to say that.
no, and to her credit, one of her comfort viewings was to watch the whole series of Twin Peaks over and over. But yeah, all these people are running drugs. There's also Jacques Renault, who's
Mhm.
played by Walter Alexovich. Do you know what I'm talking about, Justin Briggie? The guy who has the bar. He's French
No.
Canadian. He has a French
Yeah.
accent. He gets high with
Jack.
all the girls and Buck, and he talks about he
Mm.
feels like a fart or something. And he feels this crazy. They're
Mm.
all and that was so realistic. Like you're in a club and you're high and you're drunk, and somebody says some random thing like that, and you just think it's the funniest thing in the world. You just think suddenly that guy's like a god to you, and that's how these rednecks are like, that's hilarious. And but what's cool is the way Laura counters it, because I forgot what he says. I'm the great wint, and then she says, I am the muffin. And then there's that scene where the last scene where her and Donna really have kind of a sentimental time together in the living room. And when she's leaving, she's like, I'm a muffin, and it was like, she's Donna's muffin, and so, but now she's a muffin in this context. So I didn't think that was ever resolved, but I like the fact they throw this kind of like repetitive word things because that's what people do in real life who are friends. Not everything's all tied up so easily,
Yeah.
but you might have a bunch of synchronicities, and then ultimately end up meaning nothing in the long run. But so I felt like that whole so the operation you don't know from the movie, but the operation is so vast that it not only goes through all these people we just mentioned, but it also goes up to my man here, Benjamin Horn. So Benjamin Horn, played by Richard Beamer, he is like the I don't know how familiar you viewers are with soap operas, but he's an archetypal Alan Spaulding kind of character.
Mhm.
On our show not long ago, we actually had an interview with Toby Poser, who played the daughter of Alan Spaulding for a while on Guiding Light. Alan Spaulding was he came before like J.R. Ewing and Blake Carrington on Dynasty and Victor Lord on One Life to
He
Live.
was horrible. He was horrible. He was like a
Yeah,
real villain.
but you liked him. I always liked Alan, even though he
Yeah,
was horrible. I mean,
yeah, he
he
was a real
all
villain.
three actors that played him were brilliant, and
Mhm.
all three of them got their starts in genre movies or horror. That's what's weird. But yeah, Alan Spaulding, that's who Benjamin Horn reminds me of. He's always got that kind of happy, demeanor, but he's also scheming with the drug dealers. Then he's scheming over here, and then he's trying to do legitimate developments. And he tries to get that deal going with the Danish or whatever Icelandic people, and I can't speak English. Like that's when they would just throw insane things into the show that had no bearing on anything. Yeah, Justin, you've really gone through the structure really well. It's just certain things come to me as it goes along. So, you have any more thoughts before we go to Chuck, and then we'll all talk.
No, look, overall, I thought it was really good. I have my own impressions, and I watched it this week, so it's quite fresh in my mind. But it also helps to read just at least one review to get someone else's take as well to a high level. But it's a kind of very deep and a very sad film for me, anyway.
Yeah,
But it evokes a lot of emotions throughout the film. It's unsettling, but I think it's part of the strength of the film that it does make you unsettled. Um, Good films often do make you unsettled. So yeah, I'd commend it to anybody. Yeah,
what's the
and it's a
saddest
good,
part
it's
of?
a good, it's a good example, I think, of Lynchian type films as well in terms of
Oh, yeah.
the abstract imagery. Whether it's a painting on a wall, there's another painting with the angel at the table, and the angel features prominently
Oh,
in the final scene as
there's
well.
another
Yeah,
callback to the series that's mystical that they never really. I don't even know why he kept this part in. Sarah Palmer, she sees the
mm.
white horse. Okay, see that's
Yeah, she's draped. Yes,
Yes.
she's
that is an
fully
omen
draped.
from the White Lodge, which is
Right.
positive energy. Because in the series, she's a psychic. She never manifests in the movie because it just would be too complicated. But she is able to see that horse, and I don't think it's a real horse. It's a spirit from the what do you call it, the White Lodge, which you finally go to the White Lodge in the third season. You've been in the Red Room, you've been a little in the Black Lodge, so you go in the White Lodge, and it's like wow. And then you find out what the destiny is for Laura. It's all kind of mystical and it all fits together beautifully. But yeah, so that they could have cut the horse thing out, but yeah, one thing was sad. Saddest for me is at the ending where she's already dead, and then she's in the red room with Dale, and she's crying, and those shots of her crying, I mean, they're iconic. You look up Laura Palmer, Cheryl Lee, and the three or four shots where she's smiling and crying in the red room are just like God. They're almost as iconic as the prom shot and the wrapped in
Yeah,
stick
the
shot.
proper shot's very iconic. Yeah,
And you know what they did during that scene? The scene, okay, the scene where she died. Her friend Phoebe Augustine is the actor. What's the name of her character? Rolette
Ronette.
Ronette Pulowski. So Ronette
Yeah.
Pulowski is crawling out of the subway train, getting away from Leland, and Leland is just beating the shit out of Laura. When she's about to die, and then the music stops, and you see that angel, and that was not in the script. Lynch said right there when they shot the scene, they said she's got to see the angel here just for a shot, just hope because they never have angels in their mythology, but that movie does have angels, and I think the white horse was an angel too. I think the beings from the White Lodge kind of are what we would think of as angels. They're like benevolent spirits, whereas Bob is a demonic spirit. I thought that was sad. I cried when she's crying. In the end, I cried. What cemented it for me is I'm going to answer Bergie's original question, and I'll ask you too, Dustin. I forgot. Do you need to see the original series to enjoy the movie, or does it make it, does it enhance the experience? Can you follow it without seeing the old show? So here's what I would say. I would say, um, first of all, Firewalk with Me that we have watched as a movie is not the complete story that's actually canon. There's an hour and a half of deleted scenes, and he's never, well, he's dead now. He's never cut them into the movie, but I'm sure you could branch them if you were a whiz at this stuff, or you could do it on video. We have a computer, but it's an hour and a half of material, and it explains a lot of the kind of, or at least gives you more of a clue to a lot of this kind of stuff we don't quite understand than what's in the actual movie. Like there's whole characters they cut out, like the doctor, doctor played by Russ Tamblyn with the crazy dual colored glasses. What's his name? Doctor or something.
Dr. Jacoby.
Yeah, he's a psychiatrist, and he was one of Laura's lovers. He was one of her most ardent lovers, and they expound a little bit on that in a little scene with him, and you also see glimpses of Norma and Shelley in the context of the diner, but in the deleted scenes, you see more of Shelley and the segue into her and Leo, not a whole lot, and Shelley and is longing for Ed. So you never see Ed in the movie. You don't know that James's uncle is in love with the diner owner. If you hadn't watched the series, you wouldn't know any of that. Uh, I think the scene where he slaps Shelley, I think that's almost, not to confuse people, I would have cut part of that scene too. I'm glad he kept it, but what I mean is it almost starts to go into another sub storyline when it needs to be tied to the fact that Leo is part of this drug ring. He needs to remind you every 15 minutes who the hell is part of this gigantic network of criminals and ne'er do wells. Um, but I think if you don't see the series, then this is where you start because that's one reason he did it out of chronological order, because then no one could say, "Oh, they wanted him to continue the show. What's happened to Dale? Dale's in the lodge for 25 years." I mean, what can he do? What can Lynch do? He can't force these gods and demons to let Dale out of the lodge. He's waiting. He's waiting. And I'm being serious and I'm being sarcastic, but I'm also talking about magic. I believe there's a synchronicity why this series came together what it did in every level, and why
To me, I think it helped to have some knowledge of the series, although it's probably 1993 or something since I watched the series. But it sticks in your mind, the characters and everything. So therefore, it made it easier to watch this film this week. Return to it and watch Firewalk with Me. But equally, I think you could get away with watching this film first and then watching the series if that would still work. And
that would work in chronological order if you wanted.
I do remember Leo was in the series as a negative, sinister character in the series, and
he had a lot of scenes in the series, unfortunately.
And he gets away in this film. He takes off in a car after Jax has been killed. So he lives to be in the series,
because all he was to Dale was kind of like a dead end as a lead, but he was a lead, when Dale started investigating her murder. So this shows like what he was involved with, but he didn't do it. But yeah, he's in the show a lot. He's a nut. He gets his karma though later in the show, and they redeem Bobby in the somewhat, and then in the third season they totally have redeemed. Bobby's actually one of the cops now, and they kind of go into why he went on this kind of journey. I mean, they don't go deep on it. Again, you have to kind of read between things, but there's a point where they have a clue to I forgot what the mystery they open up to follow them that leads them to Dale ultimately, but the Sheriff Truman, played by Robert Forster, not the original one by Hunt Keen, it's his character brother. Um, they bring out some evidence from the files of Laura, and so Laura's iconic little prom picture sitting on the table in the investigation room, and Bobby's, he's just hanging out and he just sees it, and his lips starts to quiver and he starts to cry. I forgot what he said. He says like one line. Like you can tell in that moment that he regrets ever being an asshole to her. I mean, you know what I'm saying? It's like 25 years ago, and he's a different person. He's really the person that his father wanted him to be, because his father is part of this whole mystical occult backstory too. He's like the UFO investigating guy who investigates all the paranormal, and he's in the series, but Is he in this movie? I don't think he's in the movie, or is he in the movie? Yeah,
I don't think that he is.
yeah. And when he died before the third season, but like
Yeah.
David Bowie, his character is still a major character, even though they're dead. Even the actors are dead.
Mm.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I would say start with the series. I start with the movie if you want to just see how it happens, and then go into the series, and then go into the third season. And uh, if you want to skip the series, I mean, if you want to skip seasons 1 and 2 and just watch the movie altogether, then at least watch the return later, because a lot of the things that are set up in Fire Walk with Me are not in the original series. There are new ideas he was introducing, building on the old ideas, and all his ideas are paying off in the third season. But not all of the other Mark Frost and stuff mythology was. Even though Mark Frost did co-write season 3. Um, so Justin, what do you think of make of this, man?
Make of the entire film.
No, no, I said Justin. I meant CF. What do you make of this,
Oh,
Chuck?
yeah, sorry. Yeah, I've already
Uh,
said that. Yeah.
I don't know. Give me a starting point as what exactly you mean
Do
by
you think
what
you
do
need to
I
see the
think?
series to enjoy the movie? I mean, yeah, to enjoy the movie.
I don't think so, but I mean, I really always kind of could have taken or left a lot of the mystical stuff because to me, a lot was just kind of silly anyway. But I mean, down to its core, I could see it very understandably. This is a story about a girl who was molested by her father, and it'd be perfectly fine to leave it at that. But
Yeah, I can't do that
but
personally.
the other stuff is dense, and there's lots and lots and lots of it.
Yeah,
And
it's called
unless you
lore.
can tie all that to the meaning of that story, you might be lost.
Yeah, I think even if you've seen the entire canon, you're still gonna wonder a few things,
Yeah.
and it's okay.
There's a lot of extraneous
The
stuff,
ending of the whole series, season 3.
but
The
the
fuck,
series is there.
exactly, and you can keep going over because it is
Yeah.
deliberately a mystery. Because Mark Frost was a Sherlockian scholar, and Lynch loved mystery noir movies, so it's always supposed to be in the form of a mystery. It's just the old series wrapped some soap opera into it because Lynch
Mhm.
got into another world. The show Another World. He's already in another world. His brain, but the occult stuff was always there. Mark Frost planted a lot of that and it was all based on real novels and accounts. Rosicrucians. What do you call them? Not the Masons. I don't like them.
Yeah, see, I've
But
always
not that
I've
stuff.
always tried to look into a lot of that stuff and see how
Alchemy.
much of it was legit
It
or how
is
much it
legit.
was
Yeah.
fabricated for the show.
The stuff on the show where they get to end of season 2 and then into the season closer of the series that he directs himself.
Hmm.
All of that lore, it's Mark Frost has injected in it via Robert Engels writing because Lynch didn't have anything to do with season 2 except the first and last episode. And so what they did is they built this stuff, and when it gets into this place where they find out there's that portal in the woods, which they show that in Firewalk with Me too. Oh, I'd forgotten that. They show the portal in the woods that goes to the Red Room.
Yeah.
So that's the first, but you don't see it like you do in the
The
book.
mud puddle. The mud puddle with a reflection in it.
Yeah, but then when you open it up, it's the Jack Rabbit's palace, and it's a
Hmm.
it's a it's a guide to the White Room. And ironically, only Andy, the stupidest character, gets to go to White Room. The stupidest character
Go
gets to go
figure.
into the
Yeah, you
deepest
can't.
mystery.
Ain't that a kick in the head? Yeah.
It's so beautiful. So yeah, it's alchemy, and I've known people practice alchemy in reality. There's a text called Zanoni, by Edward Bulwer Lytton. He was a notorious literary author from a couple of centuries ago. He
Uh,
is famous for, or infamous for, quoting a lot of cliches. Like he said, the pen is mightier than the sword. It
uh,
happened on a dark and stormy night.
uh,
Everything slave to the almighty dollar. All that comes from his brain. He
yeah.
was an alchemist, and he wrote Zanoni. Zanoni is about a young alchemist becoming inducted into their higher levels of learning by this ancient guy named Mesner, who is kind of probably lived in ancient Babylonia, I would say. So probably like 5,000 years old. But he's waning. So he's teaching Zanoni, but then Zanoni gets the love triangle with this guy named Glendon, over the woman, I forgot her name. And so he has a choice. Does he want to stay a human, or does he want to give up the love and have all the power? And it's benevolent
Mhm.
power. And I forgot what he does, but I have read the book, but I didn't know that was buried in the movie until I forgot how I got on that rabbit hole. But there's
Wow.
one line near the end of the show, the original show, where Hawk goes, "It's the dweller on the threshold. He will do this to you. He'll blah 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 blah. He'll be your mirror." And he's talking about the doppelganger, the whole doppelganger thing. He's talking about the lodge having the other versions of these people. Um,
Yeah.
and the lurker on the threshold is it's what you see when you go into the lodge. It's basically you and you're reflected back. You see your evil self, and then I don't know how you deal with it, because apparently LR and Dale dealt with it okay for 25 years, but it's weird. But that phrase, the dweller on the threshold, that phrase came from H.P. Lovecraft. Um,
Uh,
but
that sounds like a Lovecraftian
but it
phrase.
was a paraphrase of Bulwer Lytton's Zanoni. I think one of them said lurker and one of them said dweller. So, but the threshold, they mean they're going to go into the place physically where they know Bob exists. Dale and a few people think he's starting to think Dale's not totally crazy. And when they find the portal in the woods, then that's where they're going. And the problem, though, the conflict, is that Wyndham Earl is even more deep into this occult black ops shit and is a villain, hates
Mm.
everybody, and he's beaten them there to the portal. And
Yeah.
that finding of the portal,
Doesn't work out terribly well for him.
no, and that
Yeah.
plot pivot where David Lynch says, you know what, this show's they're going to be canceled. I'm going to step back in. I'm going to fix all the stuff that Mark and Robert put in there. There's good stuff here. There's bad stuff. And one of the very first things he does is he has Wyndham Earl menacing Annie, played by young Heather Graham. And when for the first time, that actor, in all the episodes he was on Twin Peaks, for the first time, he actually gave a good performance. He is the most terrible actor on Twin Peaks by far. Wyndham Earl should be an amazing actor. He's such a pivotal character. They didn't even mention him
Yeah.
in the third series. That's how much Lynch was annoyed by that character. But Lynch has him actually act competently and villainous, and then he traps him in the lodge and he's destroyed. Basically, I think he's telling the audience, I've solved the mystery. You already know who killed Laura. Now you want to know what Bob was. What are they going? Where are they going? Is this where Bob's from? Yes. Is this where Midget's from? Is this why we're having these dreams? Why is Dale having these dreams? If Dale had remembered his dream in episode 2, it would have been solved. Well, Laura whispered in his ear in the red room that Leland killed her, and he didn't remember. Like, people forget their. He called them and he's like, "You got to meet me. I got it." And he's like, "Oh, I don't remember who it is." But they did solve it. The other thing about the dreams is, in Fire Walk with Me, Laura has those dreams, and her dreams are prophetic because Dale is in her dreams. He's dreaming the same dream. They've never met before, but their destiny, I guess, is interlocked. To me, that's the core of Twin Peaks, character-wise. It's these two characters. There's the character that's anti-heroin, fated to die, and there's the good guy who feels guilt for not saving her. And they even go into that in the last couple episodes explicitly, and of the whole series. And it kind of pivots on that, but they never meet until they're in the Red Room. And you can only get to do the Red Room by the portal in the woods, or by being dead, or in a dream. And I think there's another portal, but I forgot where it was, a physical portal. So that's how you do it. And so that's where Laura's in the lodge. Leland is in the lodge. And the man from another place, Bob, they all hang out there. And Philip Gerard, the guy who held up traffic that Justin was telling us about, See, his scene, other scene got cut, so nobody really knew who the hell this one armed guy was if you hadn't seen the show. You'd be like, "What is the
Yeah.
significance?" It is significant because he is from the White Lodge. His name is Mike. His
Yeah.
real name, and Mike is seeking to destroy Bob, to stop Bob before he kills Laura, and that's why he's running in the woods toward the very end. Again, totally out of context, but if you've seen it, you kind of know. But you don't know he's supernatural for sure near the end of the second season. But he's in the lodge too. What do you think of the end, Chuck? What do you think is the tell me how walk me through what happens when she dies and after she dies, like based on what I'm just saying, all this lore which kids nowadays love. I
I
like.
just think everything is better for her at the end. Basically, the angel that meant so much to her went away in her painting and in her picture, and
Yeah.
she had that whole line of thought running through it. Yeah, just when you die, you know, you just fall and fall forever, and
Yeah,
in
that thing she told
darkness, and
Donna.
then because the angels are all gone, and
Yeah, they had that conversation about that's
so she ends up in the lodge, and the angel is there, and everything's better because she's with the angel,
well, and she's with Dale.
and she's with Dale.
Dale is her destined protector, in my opinion.
Hmm.
They're not like boyfriend and girlfriend. I mean, they're just like they're tied together. And finally, they do physically meet. We think at the end of the whole series, but that's another whole ball of wax. Um,
Oh yeah,
but her being in the white red room, to me, she's redeemed. And having Dale with
hmm,
her, his destiny with her is locked because he already
yeah,
warned her in his dreams. Like all he knows consciously, he had the vision where he could actually tell you what she looked like because he has these psychic little bursts. He calls them. He says, "I'm a very strong sender. Some people are strong receivers, and I'm a very strong sender." But he actually is a good receiver because Albert's like, "What does she look like? What is she?" He's like, "She's blonde. She's a teenage girl. She's in trouble. She's in high school. She's doing drugs." And Albert's like, "Well, that's really helpful, man. That's like millions of people in America."
that's
But then when Dale has the dream, he's like, "Laura, don't pick up the ring." And the ring, she's dreaming it, and you're seeing the dream from her point of view. And then again, she wakes up and she forgets it. And
Mm,
the one time she wakes up, which we know, which is kind of I think it's the last big mystical occurrence that happens before they get murdered. But in her bedroom, Justin noted that the painting changed. The door went from
mhm,
open to close. So she notices that. And she
mhm,
realizes that Leland is raping her or whatever. And she has the dream, and Dale is warning her. And when she wakes up, we think she wakes up, she sees a dead, bloody girl in her bed next to her, played by Heather Graham. So that's Annie
yeah,
Blackburn from the original series, the sister of Norma, who owns the R&R Diner. And that was Heather
yeah,
Graham's very first acting role of any note, even before Drugstore Cowboy, about a year before Drugstore Cowboy. She was literally
yeah,
like 19 years old. And so what they're showing here is that's David Lynch's solution for the ones who wanted him to solve it, since the Lodge doesn't have anything to do with linear time.
mhm,
Lodge has nothing to do with linear time whatsoever. So if you go, what happened to Annie in the Lodge? We don't. Oh, this was a prequel. It's like, well, you're still going to find out what happened to Annie because Annie, even back then, was in the Lodge, even though she was in. It's heavy, and apparently Wyndham Earl did murder her in the Lodge, but that's the
mm,
last time you see her. Yeah, I that was my only bone I had to pick with Lynch was not explicitly explaining what happened to Annie and how the real Dale felt about it because he switches right after that. And
mhm.
the character you see at the end of the original series where he's brushing his teeth, you guys remember that? And then
Oh
he's
yeah,
like Dale, and they're back from trying to find the portal or whatever, and he hits his head on the mirror. It's bleeding, and he's like, so what does he say? Something like, "Ask Annie, ask Annie." It's giggling,
yeah,
and he is that's the other Dale. That's not the main character of the series. Now the main character of the
yeah,
series is gone, and this guy's taking over. And so when you open the new series, the third season, with the guy with long hair and leather, the villain, Mr. C, that is that same character. So
Yeah.
to me, a lot of the things with Twin Peaks lore, it's like a lot of lore. This lore thing's become real complicated online lately. I try to avoid it. But I've been into this stuff since I was like a little bitty munchkin. I mean, I'm still kind of little bitty, but you know what I mean. And I was fascinated with it. You know, Lord of the Rings and Oz and world building and the Marvel Universe and all this stuff. And I think due to the internet and fandom and the swelling of it, a lot of fanboys, and I hate to say it, the fan bros too, especially, they feel entitled to pieces of these works, and then they actually have a chance to lambast the creators online. I'm just saying. Luckily, that none of that happened to Lynch. But the point I'm getting to is it created this atmosphere where you had all these people hungry to. What did Twin Peaks mean? I've been waiting 25 years. What happened? What does it mean? And so they go on the internet, and then they're trying to follow the news show, and they're more
And
invested.
they've all got their
Yeah, they're
speculation,
all more
all
invested
over
in
the place.
bouncing their theories off the show and other people than actually tuning into the show itself. Do you think you agree with that?
Oh yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, definitely.
that's why I left 10 Twin Peaks crews in one day. I was a member of 12. It's kind of like when Tulsi Gabbard voted for Joe Biden. Whoop, there goes all those groups. Okay, so everybody likes this movie. Any favorite scenes? Any least favorite scenes? Any favorite characters? Any favorite lines?
Yeah, one thing I could say.
Yeah.
Man, Chris Isaac, and this is one of those things that's like with, I think I said earlier when we did the David Lynch, when we did the Blue Velvet, is Frank's entire crew with with Brad Dourif and Jack Nance and Dean Stockwell as Ben. Just I wanted to see that group's movie. I wanted
Right.
to see those characters in their own movie. Okay, so with the special agents played by Chris Isaac and Kiefer Sutherland, I wanted that movie. I mean,
Yeah.
after
Yes.
what's the name of that town? After Deer Meadow, it's kind of all over for Chet.
They do mention my name once in the full series, but it's a very key mention because he mentions that he's part of the people who know about the Blue Rose. Now, if you watch Twin Peaks, the movie we're talking about, I got the impression that only Chet and Gordon Cole, David Lynch's character, knows what the Blue Rose cases are, and that Dale's kind of
Maybe
learning.
Cooper.
Yeah, Dale's kind of. You think about like Dale and Albert are kind of like learning about it, maybe?
Yeah, maybe.
Because Dale's not quite as knowledgeable as Chet at that time. And he kind of takes Chet's place. He even goes down to Deer Meadow. And you notice in the later series, in order to keep Harry Dean Stanton, without fanfare, Carl moves to live in Twin Peaks.
Yeah. Well, man, it's like, who wants to stay in Deer Meadow?
He is so good in that role too. That's hilarious. That his skill about coffee
great.
is hilarious.
Cup of Good Morning in America, yeah.
Yeah, they're obsessed with coffee. It's just like in the old series. Those guys, 3 guys, are obsessed with coffee and donuts or whatever, and staying up all night, solving mysteries. I thought Kiefer Sutherland, for early in his career, before he started just becoming a lunk, I thought he was great. Because I saw him in this, and then I saw a couple of years later, I saw him in Freeway, and I really liked him in that too.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God. But I haven't liked a lot of his roles, but I mean, I didn't like 24, but
yeah,
that's more a political thing. I didn't like the messages of 24.
Yeah.
But he's a good actor. He's not Donald. Donald died recently, rest in peace. But he was good. And Chet Desmond, Chris Isaac, he with it understated. That's the way to go if somebody's not a trained actor. Don't
he's almost like he's almost like Jack Webb just did all those series like toward the end of his life. He did he put together like Adam 12 and Emergency, and they all had kind of these cookie cutter heroes who basically were never particularly good actors, but that was kind of
they became stars.
Dialogue.
For a brief period. And Lynch is very fond of that era because he put Chad Everett in Mulholland Drive.
Yeah, yeah.
See,
Medical Center. That's another one, I
oh,
think.
I watched all
Yeah,
those. I watched and I watched the
yeah.
other ones that he didn't create. There were the ABC ones. I watched the Rookies and SWAT.
Hmm.
There were a couple
Oh
others.
yeah,
The Mod Squad's a little before my time.
yeah,
I was in the swaddled in blankies. Couldn't talk when they had done Mod Squad. My mom loved it though. Peggy Lipton from Mod
yeah.
Squad is on Twin Peaks. Oh my God,
Oh yeah.
she knew every actor. Piper
Yeah. No,
Laurie from Carrie. What did you
my
say?
parents always watched the Mod Squad.
I've only seen one episode. And Clarence Williams was in the old series. He played one
Yeah,
of the FBI guys. He played like a really authoritarian dude. Um,
yeah,
I don't think they brought him back. I want to mention before we close a couple of people that don't get much mention who were also characters that are embedded in the movie and their scenes weren't cut and may confuse some people. The Jeffries. I think that's the key scene in the movie, other than obviously the death. But for
Mhm.
the lore, the key scene is Philip Jeffries teleports from Argentina, Buenos Aires, into uh, Twin Peaks. I mean, not into Twin Peaks, into the FBI office, and Quantico maybe, I don't know, but in the deleted scenes, you actually see David Bowie, you see Philip Jeffries in the hotel in Buenos Aires, and you see him teleport. He screams, and there's a giant like explosion behind him. He disappears, and there's just it's a great effect, and he's gone. So that's he cut that. He just has him appear. Now, when went back to the third season, he mentions some of the characters mentioned that Philip Jeffries lived in Buenos Aires, Argentina, for a long time. So that implies he went back there. So he just came to the FBI office to warn them, and he said he is the one or whatever to Dale. Who do you see there? And nobody who hasn't watched the show would know what the hell he's talking about.
yeah,
That's when you had to know the show. You had to know that Dale was going to end up being the hero and trying to save Laura. I mean that it's kind of obvious, but Jeffries is like telling everybody like an omen. Then he says, "I was in the store. I've been to one of their meetings. They live inside a dream." And Lynch actually did that in a longer scene. He made a longer convenience store scene. And what he did is he
yeah,
cut all these scenes up, and that's what you end up with David Bowie when he's screaming and all these images are flashing.
yeah,
You see the short thing in the convenience store in the attic, I guess. So it's Bob and it's Man from Another Place. They're sitting at a table together. I think the man might have the green ring. And so in the back you got a row of people. So you got Jurgen Prochnow, who is credited highly in the movie and he has no dialogue. But
mm,
he was Lynch's friend because he played um, Prochnow played Kyle's father in Dune. So
hmm,
he appears as the Woodman. You don't know what the Woodmen are until you see the later series. But on this row, there are all these people who got to maintain this thing called the convenience store. Yeah, that's the other portal. I forgot that. And at
uh,
the end, there's a black guy. If you're not paying attention and you're just focusing on what they're seeing in the forefront, you'll miss these characters. So you see the Chalfonts, you'll notice them. It's a grandmother and a son, and they are always omens of evil. Um, they pop up, and in this movie, a little boy wears that thing with the mask with the long beak, and that kid is played by Austin Lynch, who was David's real son. Um, and so they're kind of like these spooky omens, but at the end, there's this black guy, and he's dressed kind of the Woodman too, but he's messing with some kind of device, and they're like sparks. And in the credits, he's credited as the electrician, um,
yeah,
Calvin Lockhart.
yeah.
And I love Calvin Lockhart. I don't remember if he was alive when the third season came or not. If he was, I wish he'd been in it. They made new Woodmen, but anyway, so the convenience store is a portal. Long story short, I don't know how you get to the convenience store. The only person you ever see actually walk to it is Mr. Steve, but you don't see really where he's coming from. He parks. He goes up to a material convenience store, and he does. He goes upstairs, and then he goes into this portal, and then he starts talking to Philip Jeffries, who has metamorphosed into another physical form, but he's
Oh
still.
yeah.
Oh my god,
Giant tea kettle.
giant tea kettle. And here's a fact of trivia
Very
about
odd.
David Bowie always said to Lynch that he hated the way David Bowie, did the Cajun accent intended to be Cajun accent for Philip Jeffries. So when David Lynch said, "You want to do the new show because Philip Jeffries is going to be important," he's like, I don't know what he said, but the gist was, "I'm sick, I'm dying, I'm making Black Star my last album, and Iman is, kissing me on the head and stuff." And I mean, what a life, what a death. And so, but he said, what I want you to do is, if you can use all the footage of me, the ones you use in the leftover footage, but dub another guy on it, dub a guy who can do an actual Cajun accent, dub over what I did. So when you see Jeffries in flashbacks in Fire Walk with Me, and those scenes are again in the third season, that's a new guy voicing Philip Jeffries, and then that same actor does the voice for the thing that Philip Jeffries metamorphoses into. So, spoiler alert, he metamorphoses into something that looks like a giant teapot. So, take that, do it what we will, man.
Have fun with that.
That's what happens when everybody sees it. It gets like that. WTF? 3 question marks. 2 exclamation marks. So, okay. So, anybody got final thoughts before we wrap up?
One thing I wanted to say, I have one observation. I
Yeah.
can't remember the third one, but I noticed that there is, of course, a through line with the woman who had the blue rose, and
Yeah.
then there's blue velvet, and then there's another reference to blue in, I think it might
On
be Wild
Empire.
at Heart.
Mhm.
Oh, is it? Is it? Oh, okay.
On High
Is
on
it?
Blue Tomorrows.
Right, yeah. See, so there's like through line of blue. And these are
Yeah,
the
Mulholland
little
Drive too.
little things that I pick up in a lot of his movies, which I think are that bring a cohesion, and he creates his own world. He has his own iconography, and
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
uses it however he wants it. I love that. I love that.
Very well said. And when you get into the third series, they pretty much say that, we never solved what happened 25 years ago with Philip Jeffries and Albert, but Albert and Gordon are trying to find Dale. So what I liked about the third series is David Lynch made himself a major character from a minor character. Now he's like a major screen time character, and he wrote a lot of in jokes for himself that were barbs and trolls that people hate him. Like he loves women, he loves sex, he loves to date much younger women, he loves to date like French women, and all these things are shown as part of the stuff Gordon does. And he kind of winks, someone almost literally winks to Albert about some of this stuff, and finally they sum it up in this I thought it was hilarious one liner, two liner. He says, I don't know, Gordon. I think you're getting soft, man. I think you're going soft." He said, "Not where it counts, buddy. Not where it counts." And
Actually,
right around that time in real life, his baby was born by his fourth wife. So yes, that's a great thing about the blue thing. I think it's fantastic, and we could talk forever. So let's wrap this one up. Thanks for watching, everybody. Justin had a message for you, and so did Briggie. Go for it.
Well, we really do appreciate your patronage and watching these videos. Hope you're getting the best out of them. But please, it's very critically important you do not forget to like and subscribe. And feel free to make a comment, provide your thoughts, positive or negative or indifferent. But provide your thoughts on the messages as well. That'll be great. But don't forget, please like and subscribe.
Absolutely.
stay blue and subscribe. Take deep dives with us into the bluest depths of David Lynch and his freaky, crazy world. We love to hear everything you have to say.
Oh yeah.
And thanks so much for spending time with us. We really enjoy you.
Thank you. And we'll be back with another Lynch film soon. Take care.
And it's true that we cannot see that far behind. If we looked all the way in the past, we'd go blind. In the night, from the stars as they've all lived their lives, and the light that they gave as they burned and then died.